last week, where the PCs won a supermajority, and essentially everything that all the parties were talking about was about unaffordability. The federal government right now is talking about unaffordability. Stay with us on Why Media Political Sensax. It is a show that will cover all the details that you need to know when it comes to politics, what's happening in government here in Canada, US, and international, and we'll cover what has been talked about and the debate that continues in the House of Commons in Ottawa when it comes to affordability. But the crisis of affordability also extends to housing. And if you can imagine, there is a report that was released, and this report covers 92 different cities in 8 countries. The countries are Australia, Canada, China, Ireland, New Zealand, Singapore, United Kingdom, and the United States. And you'll be shocked to know in the top 10 how many Canadian cities are on the list. Take a look at the graphic that is going to show now, and you'll see the top 10. And if you live in any of those cities, you're essentially looking at those cities. So Hong Kong is in first place for the most expensive real estate when it comes to housing market. That's not a surprise as much as the Canadian cities that are going to come up. You have Sydney, Australia in second place. You have Vancouver, Canada in third place, San Jose in the United States and California in fourth, Melbourne in Australia in fifth place, Honolulu, Hawaii in the United States, you have that in sixth place, San Francisco seventh in the United States, that's in California, Auckland, New Zealand in eighth place, Los Angeles in ninth place, Los Angeles, California. And if you can imagine, Toronto, Ontario, Canada has made it to the 10th spot on the list. So you have 2 Canadian cities on that list, and number 3, Vancouver, BC, and Toronto, Ontario on the 10th spot. This is taking into factor about 9 countries and 92 different cities in those, 8 countries, 92 different cities. When it comes to the report, it gave a score based on severely unaffordable, seriously unaffordable, moderately unaffordable, and the rankings are the top 10. And if you live in any of those 2 Canadian cities, then you probably understand what it's like to have housing as an issue. And those were alarming, because when I looked at that, I was expecting New York City to be on there, and New York City wasn't on there, but Vancouver was there. Toronto was there in the top 10. And this is quite alarming in terms of what it means for the cities. And we've seen that people are just being outmarketed in the housing market when it comes to those cities and in the greater Toronto area. And it's not just being able to afford to buy a home, but we've seen that to be the case when it comes to renting. A recent Ecos Research poll was released that renters in Toronto are having to choose between eating or paying rent. They're eating less food a month so they can pay their rent, and it found that anybody who's spending about 50% or more of their income for housing, well, they're at a huge risk of being homeless if they lose their source of income. So this is quite significant and alarming numbers and what it means for the housing market. And even though we have, and we're going to cover this. Tune in onto Why Media Political Sensax when it comes to housing, affordability, when it comes to even supply issue, and when it comes to housing. We've even heard some of the political parties talk about bringing back rent control and the way they would implement that. So lots of conversation around on how to address this issue.